everyone, and welcome to Bookish Babbles, the podcast where we reread our favorite books and chat about them. I'm your host, Alyson, and without further ado, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 39 of Bookish Babbles. Today we are talking about chapters 7 to 9 of Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins, and we are wrapping up part 1. It is also the week before Christmas. I am slightly losing my mind, as you do, but so Merry Christmas to everyone listening who celebrates, and when this episode comes out, I believe it will be the second day of Hanukkah. Yeah, because today's the first. So happy Hanukkah for everyone listening who celebrates. I finished reading Babel. It was amazing. 5 out of 5 stars, hands down, like I said. I am currently reading a wonderful holiday read called Kiss Her Once for Me. It's a queer holiday rom-com. By what's her name? I should know the author's name. Her name's mine. Alyson. Well, not my last name, but Alyson. Cochram. I should have looked up how to spell her name. She wrote The Charm Offensive, which I also read earlier this year, and it was amazing. But yeah, although she spelled Alyson wrong, she spelled Alyson with an I. Doesn't she know the correct way to spell it is with a Y? Fun fact about me, guys. My name is spelled with one L and a Y, and I've never been able to find it on, a keychain in a gift shop or something, and I've been petty about it ever since. The closest I ever came was 2 L's and a Y. I don't know. The Y is just very important. It just felt closer somehow because it was a Y instead of an I. Anyway, that was an unnecessary tangent, but we're keeping it in. Anything else to update you guys on? Nope. Like I said, I'm just slightly losing my mind because of the holidays. I think everyone gets stressed leading up to the holidays, unless, I don't know, you're under the age of 12. I think 12 was the last time I wasn't stressed during the holidays. Yeah, I've been reading Kiss Her Once for Me, but I haven't really been watching anything new other than occasionally rewatching Clone Wars episodes while preparing for these episodes. Words. I don't know, guys. I'm tired. It's fine. I'm currently recording in my grandparents' basement, and the heat hasn't kicked in, so it is cold down here. Anyway, yeah, I got nothing else much to say. I'm just filling up time for no reason, so let's just dive in. Okay, so last week, Katniss and Haymitch sort of reconcile, I think. They hold a meeting to rethink the propos because Katniss is a terrible actress, and they decide to go to District 8 to film Katniss. This week, Katniss and crew film an explosive propo. So sorry for that pun. That was so bad, but also kind of not sorry. Anyway, we get an iconic song, and Peeta sends an urgent message. So with that being said, let's dive into chapter 7. Okay, so we have arrived in District 8. The hovercraft quickly drops them off and then, takes off. And we meet Katniss's film crew. All of them are from the Capitol. We get the 2 cameramen, Castor and Pollux. Also, they're wearing these big mobile cameras strapped to their backs, and Katniss describes them as insect shells. So until she learns their names, she calls them the insects. We also have the assistant director, Masala, he's basically just described as having multiple piercings. And most important, we get Cressida, the director. I don't care how she's described in the book. All I can picture is Natalie Dormer. She was perfect casting, just like everyone else in this movie. And I just gotta say, other than Madge, Cressida is my favorite underrated character in this series. Actually, I feel like a lot of the characters that are introduced in Mockingjay are underrated because this book isn't as well loved as the previous 2, but Cressida is vital to the rebellion. She is the director of the propos, and I think we all know that directors are key to a good project. Best example I can think of at the moment is George Lucas, because he's an excellent visionary, fantastic at world building, and will forever hold some degree of respect for him because, he gave us Star Wars. Though I will forever criticize him for putting Ahsoka Tano in a tube top in the first couple seasons of Clone Wars. There is no reason for a 14-year-old to be wearing that in an active war zone. But, that's a rant for another day. Not what we're talking about right now. Also, in Clone Wars, during the whole, gladiator scene toward the end, not Clone Wars, Attack of the Clones, the gladiator scene toward the end, that one creature, rips, Padme's shirt, so, we see her belly. Why is only the woman getting her shirt ripped? If you're gonna objectify, characters, come on, equal opportunity. Ewan McGregor and Samuel L. Jackson are right there. Why can't either of them get their clothes torn? Anyway, everyone in those movies are physically beautiful. Okay, moving on. George Lucas, great world builder, not a very good director or dialogue writer. Now, I am a child of the prequel era. I will forever have a soft spot for it, especially Revenge of the Sith. It's forever one of my favorite Star Wars movies, but those movies were not done very well. The whole trilogy has incredible ideas. They just weren't very well executed because, the whole idea of this evil empire grew from within this, republic of quote-unquote good guys, because in your corruption, destroying it and becoming the empire, that's fascinating. But it wasn't done well. And also, Natalie Portman is an amazing actress, but her portrayal of Padme wasn't her strongest performance, unfortunately, which is a shame because Padme is one of my all-time favorite Star Wars characters, so, Natalie Portman's really talented. She was just given bad direction. Anyway, all that to say is directors are important, and Cressida deserves respect. She may not be making a movie, but she still has to, be able to execute a story well for this, because, that's essentially what they're doing with these propos, selling Katniss's story so that, people will join the rebellion. Anyway, we're still on the first page of the chapter. Where are we? So they go through a warehouse and emerge onto a street where everything is just a big disaster. And a bunch of wounded District 8 citizens are being brought into the makeshift hospital. And I do mean makeshift because no one in the districts is allowed to have proper medical care. In District 12, Mrs. Everdeen is apparently everyone's healthcare plan. But all jokes aside, really horrible thing to see. And Katniss is naturally, she's deeply uncomfortable seeing all this and understandably wants to not be filmed in this really uncomfortable and horrible situation. And, she thinks that there's nothing she can do for these people. After all, she's not a doctor. She can't heal them, but Boggs does encourage her to go in, telling her that she'll do more than she realizes. And the first woman who spots them, does a double take when she sees Katniss. And as, most of us would do if suddenly, we saw a celebrity at the grocery store or something. But, obviously different situations. Anyway, but now we're introduced to the other best underrated character in this book that I'm excited to meet. Commander Paler, everyone! Future president of Panem! Her and Cressida surviving this series almost makes up for Madge. Though nothing can make up for the two very devastating deaths that happened toward the end of the book. But we don't have to think about that right now. Anyway, I love Paler so much. I love her no-nonsense attitude, and she's the leader that Panem needs, and I desperately want her to be real and to be our world leader. I also love the little interaction she and Katniss have. Paler says, "You're alive then? We weren't sure." And Katniss is like, "I'm still not sure myself." I also love how even though Paler, had that moment of shock seeing Katniss, she still is a bit skeptical, wanting Katniss to prove that she's worthy of the adoration that people have for her. And I don't think it's out of malice. I think it's more about wanting Katniss to be genuine because it's what her people deserve. They deserve to have someone that they can look up to who's worthy of that praise. Katniss even kind of stands up a bit straighter around Paler, wanting to impress her. And that's the mark of a good leader, I think, in my humble opinion. Because, inspiring others to do better and not out of fear. Coriolanus. Be a Paler, not a Snow. Hashtag be a Paler, not a Snow. Anyway, I'm done gushing over Paler and Cressida. For now. So Paler leads them to the hospital. Gale points out that they have all their sick and wounded together. This may not be the best idea. Paler's like, yeah, no shit, but I literally got no other options right now. Another comment I want to make in regards to Paler. Katniss describes her as looking young, about early 30s. And Katniss, this is your daily reminder that you are a literal child too. Anyway, Katniss manages to pull herself together enough to go to the room where all the living patients are. And I do mean living, because they did pass a room where there were a pile of dead bodies. They haven't had time to take to the mass grave yet. So, some dark shit, guys. Okay, this next part is such a beautiful moment. Okay, the rest of the scene is, who am I kidding? I get chills reading it. I get chills every time I watch it in the movie. I don't care how cheesy it is. I love it. And I swear I'm doing my best to not just read everything in this scene or this whole book, because it would just be too much, guys. So I'll just read a little bit. Starts on page 89. I don't know what this voice is. I'm so sorry. Katniss, a voice croaks out from my left, breaking apart from the general din. Katniss? A hand reaches for me out of the haze. I cling to it for support. Attached to the hand is a young woman with an injured leg. Blood has seeped through the heavy bandages, which are crawling with flies. Her face reflects her pain, but something else, too. Something that seems completely incongruous with her situation. Is it really you? Yeah, it's me, I get out. Joy. That's the expression on her face. At the sound of my voice, it brightens, erases the suffering momentarily. You're alive! We didn't know. People said you were, but we didn't know, she says excitedly. I got pretty banged up, but I got better, I say. Just like you will. I've got to tell my brother. The woman struggles to sit up and calls to someone a few beds down. Eddie! Eddie, she's here! It's Katniss Everdeen! A boy, probably about 12 years old, turns to us. Bandages obscure half his face. The side of his mouth that I can see opens as if to utter an exclamation. I go to him, push his damp brown curls back from his forehead, murmur a greeting. He can't speak, but his one good eye fixes on me with such intensity, as if he's trying to memorize every detail of my face. I hear my name rippling through the hot air, spreading out into the hospital. Katniss! Katniss Everdeen! The sound of pain and grief begin to recede, to be replaced by words of anticipation. From all sides, voices beckon me. I begin to move, clasping the hands extended to me, touching the sound parts of those unable to move their limbs, saying hello, how are you, good to meet you. Nothing of importance, no amazing words of inspiration, but it doesn't matter. Boggs is right. It's the sight of me alive that is the inspiration. Hungry fingers devour me, wanting to feel my flesh. As a stricken man clutches my face between his hands, I send a silent thank you to Dalton for suggesting I wash off the makeup. How ridiculous, how perverse it would feel presenting that painted capital mask to these people. The damage, the fatigue, the imperfections, that's how they recognize me, why I belong to them. Despite the controversial interview with Caesar, many ask about Peeta, assure me that they know he was speaking under duress. I do my best to sound positive about our future, but people are truly devastated when they learn I've lost the baby. I want to come clean and tell one weeping woman that it was all a hoax, a move in the game, but to present Peeta as a liar now would not help his image, or mine, or the cause. I begin to fully understand the lengths to which people have gone to protect me, what I mean to the rebels. My ongoing struggle against the capital, which has so often felt like a solitary journey, has not been undertaken alone. I have had thousands upon thousands of people from the districts at my side. I was their Mockingjay long before I accepted the role. A new sensation begins to germinate inside me, but it takes until I am standing on a table, waving my final goodbyes to the hoarse chanting of my name to define it. Power. I have a kind of power I never knew I possessed. Snow knew it as soon as I held out those berries. Plutarch knew when he rescued me from the arena, and Coin knows now, so much so that she must publicly remind her people that I am not in control. Like I said, I don't care how cheesy you think it is, I love it. Excuse me. Anyway, they go outside and Katniss is worn out. She kind of collapses on the wall, and that is a physical representation of how I feel after social interactions. But, that is a lot. Katniss even, forgot they were filming her right up until Cressida comments about how they got some great footage. Also, I like to propose an idea to the fandom. So a lot of people, and I mostly see this on TikTok, have dubbed Haymitch as, Katniss's father figure for the series. And I love Haymitch, to be clear. He is one of my favorite characters, but I think Boggs is the real father figure that Katniss needs. Haymitch is quite literally the drunk uncle. I know how on the nose that is, but it works. Boggs is more mentally stable, and he gives her a subtle pep talk, I think, and it's a very underrated but really sweet moment. On page 91, Katniss says, "I didn't do much, really," and Boggs, tells her that she should give herself some credit, and the rest of the passage is, quote, "What I've done in the past, I think of the trail of destruction in my wake. My knees weaken, and I slid down to a sitting position. That's a mixed bag. Well, you're not perfect by a long shot, but times being what they are, you'll have to do." I love how comforting yet honest Boggs is with her, which, I think is what she needs. Gale also compliments her, impressed that she let all those people touch her and didn't run away, and that, her mother would be proud of her. Though, according to Katniss, her mother won't even notice her when she sees the footage, because she'll be more focused on the really bad conditions of the hospital. And according to Boggs, conditions like this are common in the other districts, and 13 helps where they can, but can't do too much, unfortunately, which is common in real-life wars. Yay, accuracy. Anyway, yeah. So, speaking of, fighting being a bigger focus in war, bombers incoming. They start to run for cover, and, the moments later, the bombs are there. Haymitch talks to Katniss through her earpiece, tells her that they can't land to get her while the raid is going on. So he tells her that, imperative that she does not get spotted. They're pretty sure that the raid was scheduled ahead of time, but still best to stay out of sight. Now, in the movie, they show that, cameras did pick up on Katniss, and Snow, finds out that she's in 8. And, he orders the hospital bombing because, she's there. Which is a good way to, kind of fill in the blanks. But I'm curious, did they know that Katniss was there in the book? I mean, I guess we can assume from the movie that Snow did because, Suzanne worked very closely for these movies and writing in scenes like this. But no, did they know? Because, they just decided, because 13 only decided, just hours ago to send her there. I don't know. I'll make a poll on this. If you're listening on Spotify, check it out. Tell me what you guys think. Anyway, Plutarch now talks to them through the earpiece, telling them to go to the warehouse where there's a bunker that they can hide in, and they got about 45 seconds to the next wave. They don't make it before the bombs arrive. They all drop to the ground. Gale throws himself over Katniss to protect her. And so far, it seems like, Katniss hasn't been spotted, thank goodness, but they've targeted something else. The hospital. And we have a classic Katniss moment. Plutarch and Haymitch tell Katniss to get to the bunker. Katniss cuts them off by taking out her earpiece, and she runs for the access ladder to the roof of a warehouse where people are firing at, the hovercrafts dropping bombs. And also Gale kicks Boggs in the face to stop him from stopping Katniss and follows Katniss up the ladder. When they get to the top of the warehouse, they see Paler among the group up there. And again, I love this little exchange between her and Katniss. Paler, Boggs know you're up here? Katniss, he knows where we are, all right. Paler, I bet he does. I feel like this is probably the moment Paler decided that she genuinely liked Katniss, hence their final exchange at the end of the book. But, we'll get there when we get there. Then the rest of the raid happens. Katniss and Gale use fire and exploding arrows, and they use a hunting strategy they use for migrating geese, and it works. And then a few moments later, it's over, and unfortunately, the bombers did hit the hospital. So yeah, all those people Katniss just met, and he gave had an inspiring moment with and all that. Yeah, they're dead. And a huge ding on the war crime counter, because, you cannot target medical facilities. You just can't. I don't care if it, wasn't in a quote-unquote official hospital or whatever. It's still a place full of injured citizens. And if anyone in our world, Putin, does that, they will be charged with a war crime. Anyway, Katniss and Gale climb down. Katniss is surprised to see her film crew out and not hiding in the bunker. Cressida waves Katniss over toward the burning hospital, even shouts at Plutarch in her earpiece to give her 5 more minutes. And when Katniss, sees, it's pretty clear that nothing can be done to help at that point. And as she puts it, Gale's at my shoulder. The fact that he does nothing only confirms my suspicions. Minors don't abandon an accident unless it's hopeless. And from there, it's impossible not to read the rest of the chapter. Apologies for my subpar performance. Not all of us can be Jennifer Lawrence. So it starts on page 98 with Katniss saying, "Why would they do that? Why would they target people who are already dying?" I ask him. "Scare others off. Prevent the wounded from seeking help," says Gale. "Those people you met, they were expendable. To Snow, anyway. If the Capitol wins, what will it do with a bunch of damaged slaves?" I remember all those years in the woods, listening to Gale rant against the Capitol. Me not paying close attention. Wondering why he even bothered to dissect its motives. Why thinking like our enemy would ever matter? Clearly it could have mattered today. When Gale questioned the existence of the hospital, he was not thinking of disease, but this, because he never underestimates the cruelty of those we face. I slowly turn my back to the hospital and find Cressida flanked by the insects, standing a couple of yards in front of me, her manners unrattled, cool even. "Katniss," she says, "President Snow just had them air the bombing live. Then he made an appearance to say that this was his way of sending a message to the rebels. What about you? Would you like to tell the rebels anything?" "Yes," I whisper. The red blinking light on one of the cameras catches my eye. I know I'm being recorded. "Yes," I say more forcefully. Everyone is drawing away from me. Gale, Cressida, the insects, giving me the stage, but I stay focused on the red light. "I want to tell the rebels that I'm alive, that I'm right here in District 8, where the Capitol has just bombed a hospital full of unarmed men, women, and children, and there will be no survivors." The shock I've been feeling begins to give way to fury. "I want to tell people that if you think for 1 second the Capitol will treat us fairly if there's a ceasefire, you're deluding yourself, because you know who they are and what they do." My hands go out automatically as if to indicate the whole horror around me. This is what they do, and we must fight back. I'm moving in toward the camera now, carried forward by my rage. President Snow says he's sending us a message. Well, I have one for him. You can torture us and bomb us and burn our districts to the ground. But do you see that? One of the cameras follows as I point to the planes burning on the roof of the warehouse across from us. The Capitol seal on a wing glows clearly through the flames. Fire is catching, I am shouting, determined that he will not miss a word. And if we burn, you burn with us! My last words hang in the air. I feel suspended in time, held aloft in a cloud of heat that generates not from my surroundings, but from my own being. Cut! Cressida's voice snaps me back to reality, extinguishes me. She gives me a nod of approval. That's a wrap. Anyone else so proud of Katniss? Because she got to, really let go and finally, fully speak her mind for the first time. It's so good. Anyway, I need more water, and it's time for a break, because I am talking a lot this episode. Okay, we are back. So, we pick up moments from where we left off. Katniss gave her epic speech. Boggs is officially a tired single dad. He caught up to everyone and aggressively, but lovingly, I think, leads Katniss to the aircraft. She also vomits on him just to, top it all off. It's a less comfortable ride back. Basically, they are in a hovercraft that is also a cargo craft. Katniss falls asleep on the ride back and wakes up in the hospital in 13. Her mom is there. Turns out no one had told her Katniss was going to 8 until she was gone. And it is kind of sad, the fact that Mrs. Everdeen isn't seen as a real parent to Katniss by anyone. And, rightfully so, since, again, she did mentally abandon her kids and force one of them to grow up much too soon. But it doesn't change the situation being sad. Katniss is called to an early morning meeting in command. She's still pretty banged up, evident by the fact that, hurts when she tried to stand up. So they want to wheel her hospital bed there, but she manages to negotiate her way to a wheelchair. As she heads up to the meeting, Katniss is understandably nervous. She and Gale, after all, did directly disobey orders in battle. When they get to command, Cressida and crew are excited to see her, still thrilled by the great footage that they got the day before. And she compares them to Cinna in the way that they get excited about their work, and they earn Katniss's respect forever, even more, since, they followed her into an active war zone and, didn't retreat into the bunker like I would have. Also, this is the part where Katniss finally learns Pollux and Castor's names, so she can stop calling them the insects. And this is where we learn that Pollux is also an Avox, which is pretty good reason for him and his brother to say, fuck the Capitol. But I also want to know what, Pollux did to piss off the Capitol. He and Castor probably have a really interesting story, and the fact that one of them dies by the end makes this even more sad. And again, so many characters whose backstories I would love to know. I could be wrong, but I am 95% sure that Suzanne has thought of backstories for most, if not all, of these characters. But the only piece of evidence I have to that being is that, so many minor characters just feel like fully formed people. I don't know how to explain it. But all I know is that if Stephenie Meyer can write the Twilight Illustrated Guide with backstories for even the most minor of characters, even detailing all the cars that the Cullens have, Suzanne Collins can do the same. Maybe minus the cars, because I don't think most of these characters know how to drive or have licenses. Anyway, other than Haymitch, no one is acting angry toward Katniss. And Gail walks in with Coin, the two of them acting a bit too chummy for my liking. So that's a ding on the Gail red flag counter for me. Katniss even calls Gail out on this by saying, like, making new friends. And, Gail responds by saying, well, one of us has to be accessible. And while he does kind of have a point, since, it's a good idea to be on good terms with the president of 13, the leader of this whole rebellion thing. But knowing how you turn out, Gail, that still counts as a red flag for me. Shortly after that, Coin calls the meeting to order. Their airtime assault has officially begun. Woo! Beatty so far has managed to air 17 reruns, so go Beatty. Then they watch Katniss give the epic speech, and it is awesome. Everyone's so excited, even cuts to footage of them running through war zones as, bombs drop and Katniss knocking hovercrafts out of the sky, so it's great. Coin even hits the replay button after they watch it. Katniss also imagines herself watching this in her house back in 12, knowing that there's never been anything like this on TV in her lifetime, so she understands the impact, this will have on people. So far, they're able to air in the districts, even District 2, which at this point in the war could, be even more important than the capital. But, speaking of the capital, they still can't fight through the systems to air it there. I guess the government is even more careful about what the capital citizens see than they are with the districts. Got to keep the privileged happy and distracted, I guess. Coin is overall glad with the results since it's more than they could have hoped for. But she does say that the decision to send Katniss into combat was very risky and that they, should probably discuss it further. But since Coin said, decision, the way she said it, it implies that she does not know Katniss and Gale blatantly disobeyed orders, meaning Boggs, Plutarch, and everyone are covering for her. Interesting. Plutarch even says out loud, well, it was a tough decision, but, we weren't going to get any good footage otherwise. Yep, sure, Plutarch. In all seriousness, I'm sure he was low-key proud of Katniss, but also maybe wanted to save face, not admit that he had no control over Katniss in the situation. They then all discuss, what to do next. Cressida mentions all the footage they got from the hospital. They can use that. Fulvia then presents the idea of a series called We Remember. Basically, honoring the fallen tributes from over the years. That way they'll be able to emotionally appeal to the districts on a personal level, even get Finnick to personally narrate and do the intro. And there's an interesting little passage starting on page 109 in regards to Plutarch. What's interesting is that Plutarch seems to have no need to share in the credit. All he wants is for the airtime assault to work. I remember that Plutarch is a head game maker, not a member of the crew, not a piece in the games. Therefore, his worth is not defined by a single element, but by the overall success of the production. If we win the war, that's when Plutarch will take his bow and expect his reward. In his way, I think Plutarch's a good leader too. Anyway, after that, Coin sends everyone back to work. Gale wheels Katniss back to the hospital, and they even laugh like school children, happy they got away with it or got out of trouble or whatever. After which, Gale has to go to special weaponry to meet with Beatty, and Katniss dozes off. When she wakes up, Haymitch is there, ready to give her hell for switching off her earpiece. Katniss even considers calling for security. Haymitch basically threatens her with some kind of head shackle thing if she doesn't keep her earpiece in, even surgically attaching it to her ear if the shackle doesn't work. In the end, they exchange by Katniss asking him anything else, and he replies being like, well, while I was waiting, I ate your lunch. Katniss, I'm going to report you. Haymitch, you do that, sweetheart. knowing full well that there's zero chance Katniss will actually report it. Katniss then tries to go back to sleep, but she keeps seeing images from the previous day. Hard to sleep after that. At dinner time, Finnick brings Katniss a tray of food, and they watch the propos on television together. And Finnick doesn't applaud or anything, much to Katniss's relief. He just says, like, hey, it's good that it's out there so people can know what happened. Katniss tells Finnick to turn it off before it can play again, but then stops him because suddenly Peeta is on screen with Caesar Flickerman. So that means it's time for another interview. And his physical appearance is radically different from the last time she saw him, to say the very least. Because he's lost 15 pounds, his hands have a tremor, and, he's still well groomed, but the makeup can't hide the bags under his eyes, and, it's clear he's in physical pain based on how he's moving. So Katniss is, of course, very confused about the state of him, because it's been less than a week, maybe 5 days, since she saw him on TV doing that first interview with Caesar, and then it occurs to her that the interview she saw could have been a rerun, possibly a day or two after the quell, and then who knows what they've been doing to him since. And, of course, time to read the last page of the chapter, because things happen. Okay, so starting on page 113 with Caesar saying to Peeta, "Is there anything you'd like to tell her?" asked Caesar. "There is," says Peeta. He looks directly into the camera, right into my eyes. "Don't be a fool, Katniss. Think for yourself. They've turned you into a weapon that could be instrumental to the destruction of humanity. If you've got any real influence, use it to put the brakes on this thing. Use it to stop the war before it's too late. Ask yourself, do you really trust the people you're working with? Do you really know what's going on? And if you don't, find out." Black screen. Seal of Pen M. Show over. Finnick presses the button on the remote that kills the power. In a minute, people will be here to do damage control on Peeta's condition and the words that come out of his mouth. I will need to repudiate them. But the truth is, I don't trust the rebels or Plutarch or Coin. I'm not confident that they tell me the truth. I won't be able to conceal this. Footsteps are approaching. Finnick grips me hard by the arms. "We didn't see it." "What?" I ask. "We didn't see Peeta. Only the propo on 8. Then we turned the set off because the images upset you. Got it?" he asks. I nod. "Finish your dinner." I pull myself together enough so that when Plutarch and Fulvia enter, I have a mouthful of bread and cabbage. Finnick is talking about how well Gale came across on camera. We congratulate them on the propo. Make it clear it was so powerful, we tuned out right afterward. They look relieved. They believe us. No one mentions Peeta. So that's a wee bit suspicious, don't you think? I don't know what this voice is again. I am clearly losing my mind. Okay, break time. Okay, we are back. So the chapter opens with Katniss not being able to sleep because nightmares. Yay! In the morning, she's released from the hospital and told, take it easy. Cressida has her record some lines for a propo. No one mentions Peeta at lunch. During her allotted time for hunting, Gale is still busy with Beetee doing weapon stuff, so she takes Finnick outside with her. They ditch their communicators under a bush and wait till they're a safe distance away before they start talking about Peeta's broadcast, and I'm gonna say that's a ding on the 13 red flag counter because, Victor's not feeling safe to speak their minds. Feels familiar. Insert the Taylor Swift song, I think I've seen this film before, and I didn't like the ending. Anyway, so Katniss tells Finnick that no one's told her about Peeta, not even Gale, so ding on the Gale red flag counter. After that, the two of them are silent for so long that a buck actually wanders into range, so Katniss shoots it down. That night after dinner, Gale walks her back to her compartment. She gives him a chance to tell her about Peeta by being like, hey, what's been going on? And he still doesn't tell her anything. Yay. Another ding on the Gale red flag counter. Naturally, Katniss is spiraling, as any of us would in this situation. And we see that spiral on page 116. Okay, toward the top, and it's nighttime. Katniss is in her room. I slip the pearl from the drawer and spend a second sleepless night clutching it in my hand, replaying Peeta's words in my head. Ask yourself, do you really trust the people you're working with? Do you really know what's going on? And if you don't, find out. Find out what? From who? And how can Peeta know anything except what the Capitol tells him? It's just a Capitol propo, more noise. But if Plutarch thinks it's just the Capitol line, why didn't he tell me about it? Why hasn't anyone let me or Finnick know? Under this debate lies the real source of my distress. Peeta. What have they done to him? And what are they doing to him right now? Clearly Snow did not buy the story that Peeta and I knew nothing about the rebellion, and his suspicions have been reinforced now that I have come out as the Mockingjay. Peeta can only guess about the rebel tactics or make up things to tell his torturers. Lies, once discovered, would be severely punished. How abandoned by me he must feel. In his first interview, he tried to protect me from the Capitol and rebels alike, and not only have I failed to protect him, I have brought down more horrors upon him. Alright, so the next morning when Katniss gets her schedule, she's slated to go to production immediately after breakfast. During breakfast, Katniss notices that Gale has his communicuff back. They give it back to him since, if he's going to be in the field with Katniss, it's a good form of backup communication. Though interesting, no one ever offered to give Katniss one. I kind of headcanon that coin is the reason Katniss doesn't have a communicuff. Some passive-aggressive way of, how do I say this? Subtly disempowering her? You're a symbol of rebellion, but we're going to still make sure you're dependent on us because, you don't have any real power. And Katniss is angrier than she expected to be at Gale, and he knows her too well to not read her mood and guess the reason. And, of course, they get into a fight. Gale's defense is basically, I wanted to tell you, Katniss, but everyone was afraid that seeing that would make you sick. And basically just not apologizing at all. And Katniss is more sickened by the fact that Gale was lying to her for coin, as she sums up her feelings quite well on page 118. I'm sick of people lying to me for my own good, because really it's mostly for their own good. Lie to Katniss about the rebellion so she doesn't do anything crazy. Send her into the arena without a clue so we can fish her out. Don't tell her about Peeta's propo because it might make her sick, and it's hard enough to get a decent performance out of her as it is. Yikes. She then meets her prep team for remake, and she's told they're going to District 12 to film more propos. And this time, Katniss does make sure that her mother gets the message that she's leaving 13 and stresses that it won't be dangerous. And on the ride to 12, Katniss chats with Plutarch and Fulvia. They tell her that the rebels have taken districts 3 and 11, 11 being really good since that's a major food source for the Capitol. And the We Remember series is going well. As they're chatting, Gale doesn't reveal that Katniss knows about, Peeta's propo. So even though, their friendship's falling apart, they still have each other's backs, which is kind of sweet. When they land, Katniss realizes that Haymitch isn't part of the group. When she asks Plutarch, where he is, all he says is that Haymitch's words were, he couldn't face it without a bottle. And at first, Katniss silently judges Haymitch for, his weakness for alcohol, but almost as soon as she steps out, she wants a bottle herself. Cressida directs them to start with Katniss in the her home, like destruction of her childhood home. She tells Katniss to just do or say whatever she wants, but all Katniss can do is just sit there and look up at the sky, where the roof used to be. They then move on to Gale's house. He doesn't get off so easy. And the only thing he can pull out of the wreckage that's still intact is a twisted metal poker. Cressida interviews him on his life in the seam, his job in the mines, and she also has him retell the night of the firebombing. And he leads them all through all the places he went to when it happened, from his house to the meadow, and they even go all the way to the lake. Katniss can't help but feel like, having the film crew and bodyguards, it feels like an invasion, since the woods have always been, her private sanctuary, and doesn't really want it recorded for everyone to see. By the time they reach the lake, everyone's tired, so Cressida calls for a break. Katniss drinks some water and then wanders around for a bit, and she ends up at the cabin where Gale is, thinking about the last conversation they had there, when Katniss proposed they should run away and he didn't listen to her and everything went to shit. Cheese sandwiches are passed around for lunch. Katniss purposely sits next to Pollux at the edge of the group so she won't have to do much talking. Katniss spots a mockingjay nearby and whistles a bird call, which it repeats. This makes Pollux really excited, and he whistles too, and the bird picks up on it. And, Katniss realizes that this is probably the closest Pollux has had to a verbal conversation in years, and it's so beautiful and wholesome, and protect Pollux at all costs, guys. Anyway, Katniss, I think, agrees with the statement, because when Pollux asks her to sing, she can't say no to him. She walks to the edge of the woods where the Mockingjays are and starts singing the best song ever, The Hanging Tree, a song Katniss has not sung out loud for about 10 years now. And I will, of course, link the song in the show notes, both the official version from the movie and some of my favorite YouTube covers, especially the Maya Win one, of course. I never get tired of listening to this song. It's so good. And I like how we get Katniss's inner thoughts and her interpretation of the song, which is really cool to read, the first time around, back when we only had the original trilogy, but now, we obviously look at it differently because we have the context of ballad. Changes the game and everything. So I'll do a reading, of course, because, gotta read the lyrics. Starts on page 123. Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man, they say, who murdered 3? Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be, if we met up at midnight in the hanging tree. The Mockingjays begin to alter their songs as they become aware of my new offering. Are you coming to the tree where the dead man called out for his love to flee? Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be, if we met up at midnight in the hanging tree. I have the birds' attention now. In one more verse, surely, they will have captured the melody, as it's simple and repeats 4 times with little variation. Are you coming to the tree where I told you to run so we'd both be free? Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be, if we met up at midnight in the hanging tree. A hush in the trees, just the rustle of leaves in the breeze, but no birds, mockingjays or other. Peeta's right, they do fall silent when I sing, just as they did for my father. Are you coming to the tree, where a necklace of rope side by side with me? Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be, if we met up at midnight in the hanging tree. And after that, the birds have the tune memorized and they start singing it. And I'm getting chills right now. Because what, like 60 something years ago, Lucy Gray was there on a summer afternoon, just like this one, when she and Coriolanus were at the lake, fully intending to run away together. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, guys. Okay, it occurred to me, the end of Ballad, like, when they're at this lake, Coriolanus, when he may or may not have killed Lucy Gray, it was toward the end of the summer, like middle to end August, and right now it's around that time, because we know from Ballad that Reaping Day is the 4th of July, and then like a week later or something the game starts, and that can last, and once the game starts, that can last however long. Like, I think Katniss, like the 74th game's like almost 2 weeks, and then but the third quarter quell was like 3 days. So if I had to guess, I'd say Katniss was rescued from the arena around like July 15th, and there's a whole month between Catching Fire and Mockingjay, so it's mid-August when Katniss officially takes up the role of Mockingjay. And according to the last chapter, it's been about 5 days since Katniss saw the Peeta propo that inspired her to take up the Mockingjay mantle. It could very well be after the 20th of August. So it's almost the end of August, exactly around the time Lucy Gray and Coriolanus broke up, I guess. Nothing says a breakup like a potential murder. And the whole Coriolanus attempting to murder Lucy Gray, by the lake did take place during the day. And remember, Lucy Gray used the Mockingjays as cover so she could hide better. She sang the Hanging Tree for that. And that's what the birds were copying to give her cover. So, holy shit. Now, here Katniss is singing it at the place where Coriolanus saw Lucy Gray last and probably heard the Hanging Tree for the last time. I cannot wait for the fan edits now after the Ballad movie comes out. Like, I have a feeling we're gonna get some really great visual parallels, and also this just makes me want even more to see Snow's reaction to Katniss singing the Hanging Tree, because we both know they filmed we know they filmed her singing it, and they're bound to do something with it. I mean, we see in the movie that they do something with it. I don't know for sure what they do exactly with it in the book. So Snow had to be quaking when he sees Katniss, who already reminds him of Lucy Gray, singing a song that she wrote, a song that not a lot of people would know since it was censored right after its debut, and seeing her sing it in the last place where Snow saw Lucy Gray, oh my god. I don't even know what to say other than I can't wait for the Ballad movie. Also, there's the popular theory that Katniss is a descendant of Maud Ivory, who is, of course, the little girl from Ballad, Lucy Gray's beloved cousin, who's also an amazing singer. And one of the biggest pieces of evidence for this is in this book on page 124. The tune was simple and easy to harmonize to, though, and back then I could memorize almost anything set to music after a round or two. You know who else had that talent? Maud Ivory. Plus, we know that after Lucy Gray went missing, Maud Ivory probably blamed Coriolanus for it, so it's just extra satisfying that a potential granddaughter or great-granddaughter or whatever of Maud Ivory ends up playing a huge part in Snow's downfall. Gotta love it. Where was I? Okay, before I went down that huge ballad spiral. Okay, yeah, so the birds pick up on the tune. Katniss remembers, as the birds are picking up on the tune, Katniss remembers when she was a kid. Her father taught her the Hanging Tree song, and her and Prim. So Katniss was home, singing it, making her own necklace of rope, and when their mother came home and saw what they were doing, she naturally freaked out, and it scared little Katniss so much because, her mom never yelled. Prim was crying, so Katniss ran, and 7-year-old Katniss didn't really have many hiding places that her dad didn't know about, so he easily found her just hiding in a bush in the meadow. Comforted her, saying, hey, the song just scared your mother, best not to sing it anymore. So naturally, since, Mrs. Everdeen wanted her daughter to forget the song, Katniss memorized every word. Classic. She was clearly born with a rebellious spirit. She and her dad didn't sing it again since that day, and over the years, she'd think of it and the lyrics would, start to make more sense to her. And I'll read her full interpretation of the song that we get, because it's really interesting, because, again, we look at it so differently now because of the context from Ballad. Being older, I begin to understand the lyrics. At the beginning, it sounds like a guy is trying to get his girlfriend to secretly meet up with him at midnight. But it's an odd place for a tryst, a hanging tree, where a man was hung for murder. The murderer's lover must have had something to do with the killing, or maybe they were just going to punish her anyway because his corpse is calling out for her to flee. That's weird, obviously, the talking corpse bit, but it's not until the third verse that the hanging tree begins to get unnerving. You realize the singer of the song is the dead murderer. He's still in the hanging tree, and even though he told his lover to flee, he keeps asking if she's coming to meet him. The phrase, "where I told you to run so we'd both be free," is the most troubling, because at first you think he's talking about when he told her to flee, presumably to safety, but then you wonder if he meant for her to run to him, to death. In the final stanza, it's clear that's what he's waiting for. His lover, with her rope necklace hanging dead next to him in the tree. I used to think the murderer was the creepiest guy imaginable. Now, with a couple of trips to the Hunger Games under my belt, I decided not to judge him without knowing more details. Maybe his lover was already sentenced to death and he was trying to make it easier, to let her know he'd be waiting. Or maybe he thought the place he was leaving her was really worse than death. Didn't I want to kill Peeta with the syringe to save him from the Capitol? Was that really my only option? Probably not, but I couldn't think of another at the time. I guess my mother thought the whole thing was too twisted for a 7-year-old, though, especially one who made her own rope necklaces. It wasn't like hanging was something that only happened in a story. Plenty of people were executed that way in 12. You can bet she didn't want me singing in front of my music class. Now, again, from reading Ballad, we know that Lucy Gray wrote the song. The narrator is meant to be Billy. So, yes, Katniss, you're right. The guy in the song is a creep. And let's not forget, Billy was literally like, well, if I can't have you and I'm going to be executed for treason or whatever, you're going to die along with me. Real classy guy. Though she obviously doesn't know about the first hanging in Ballad, the first two verses that the song are referencing. So understandable that she's confused by the meaning on that one. And I know I'm going to have chills when Lucy Gray sings it in the movie. And again, when I get to watch all the movies with Ballad, like in chronological order, because it's such an amazing link between the two major heroines of the series, and Katniss has no idea. Anyway, after she's done singing, Katniss realizes she's being filmed the whole time. Plutarch loves the performance, even laughs about how much Katniss continues to surprise him. After that, they hike back through the woods, and they eventually come across one of Katniss and Gale's old hunting spots. And naturally, a good time for some reflection since so much has changed. So, another quick reading, because of course, on page 127, we admit without acknowledging each other. It's our old hunting rendezvous place. She wants to see it, even after we tell her it's nothing really. Nothing but a place where I was happy, I think. Our rock ledge overlooking the valley, perhaps a little less green than usual, but the blackberry bushes hang heavy with fruit. Here I began countless days of hunting and snaring, fishing and gathering, roaming together through the woods, unloading our thoughts while we filled our game bags. This was the doorway to both sustenance and sanity, and we were each other's key. There's no District 12 to escape from now, no peacekeepers to trick, no hungry mouths to feed. The Capitol took away all of that, and I'm on the verge of losing Gale as well. The glue of mutual need that bonded us so tightly together for all those years is melting away. dark patches, no light, show in the space between us. How can it be that today, in the face of District 12's horrible demise, we are too angry to even speak to each other? Gale as good as lied to me. That was unacceptable, even if he was concerned about my well-being. His apology seemed genuine, though, and I threw it back in his face, with an insult to make sure it stung. What is happening to us? Why are we always at odds now? It's all a muddle, but I somehow feel that if I went back to the root of our troubles, my actions would be at the heart of it. Do I really want to drive him away? I mean, maybe a little bit. But in all seriousness, as much as I don't like Gale, I am sad that their relationship falls apart, because I think we can all relate to the feeling of drifting away from a friend, especially someone we grew up with. And I think that's where the real tragedy is. Not the fact that Gale and Katniss, never ended up together romantically, but that they are no longer close friends by the end of the series. And again, a lot of us can relate because we grow and change, and sometimes we no longer vibe with the people we were once so close to. And I've never been in a serious romantic relationship, but I imagine it's as bad as a breakup. But anyway, I'm rambling slightly now. Let's move on. Where were we? Okay, then we then get a callback of the first interaction that we see Katniss and Gale have all the way back in book 1, or Echo, another way to describe it. Anyway, Katniss, excuse me, picks a blackberry and tosses it into the air, saying, "And may the odds." And Gale keeps looking at Katniss, not the berry, but he does catch it in his mouth at the last minute and finishes with, "Be ever in your favor." Now, maybe this is more of a callback, since I think in book 1, Katniss was the one who caught the berry in her mouth. I should move on, because I'm clearly overthinking this little moment way too much. Anyway, Cressida then has the two of them sit in a nook in the rocks and, ask them questions about hunting, what drove them to hunt, how they met, etc., etc. And an interesting moment also happens when they're asked how it felt to put, those skills to use in District 8. Katniss is silent, again, because she's uncomfortable with the violence, no matter how necessary it was. But Gale just answers with, "Long overdue," which I don't think I need to really elaborate on that. I feel like the moment speaks for itself. Anyway, they eventually get to town and are in front of the ruined bakery. Katniss stands in front of the ruins and has Cressida film her, and she addresses Peeta. She says, "Peeta, this is your home. None of your family have been heard of since the bombing. 12 is gone, and you're calling for a ceasefire? There's no one left to hear you." And then Gale shows scars from when he was, lashed by a thread. And with that, Katniss says, "Reach your limits for the day," and goes to the victor's village. Ends up at her house and is in the kitchen gathering jars and glass bottles, more stuff to bring back to her mom. And also wonders if the white rose is still upstairs, but then, starts to freak out and finishes packing faster. When she's done, she sees Gale in the kitchen leaning on the table, and he points out that, hey, this is where Katniss kissed him all the way back in Catching Fire after he was whipped. And Katniss immediately feels awkward, because at the time when she did it, she was hoping that, since Gale was so drugged up on morphling, he wouldn't remember it. Then Gale channels his inner mopey Edward Cullen when he's like, "I'd have to be dead to forget that. Maybe not even then." Even compares himself to the man in the hanging tree, waiting for an answer. And you know what? I see it. I don't remember if I made the comparison between Billy and Gale in any of my ballad episodes, but here we are. Like I said, Lucy Gray wrote the song with Billy as the speaker. Both Billy and Gale eager to be part of a rebellion. If they were in a high school film, they'd be the bad boy rebel without a cause archetype. Excuse me. And both don't really give a shit about people. Like, despite being so passionate about defeating, the big bad government that's oppressing everyone, and they both pine for a girl that they can't have, but I guess at least Gale didn't try to get Katniss executed alongside him. Also, both of them fooled around with other girls, but at least Gale and Katniss were never officially together. Billy outright cheated on Lucy Gray and was partially responsible for her ending up in the games. Basically, Gale's a better version of Billy, so yeah, as much as I shit on Gale, friendly reminder that Billy's worse. Anyway, after Gale makes that, emo love declaration, Katniss kisses him, and we get this famous bit of dialogue. Gale, I knew you'd do that. Katniss, how? Gale, because I'm in pain. That's the only way I can get your attention. Don't worry, Katniss. It'll pass. Ugh. I feel like this is a result of the time when this book was written, because this feels like something Edward or Jacob would say. I haven't decided which one. Maybe that'll be the poll. I don't know. I'll decide when I'm editing. On the ride back, Katniss tries to ignore everyone, especially Plutarch. He's going on about weapons that they no longer have access to, like, high-flying planes, military satellites, drones, and biological weapons with expiration dates. Does this mean they have biological weapons without expiration dates? Question mark. It's also interesting to think that they can create mutts on the fly for the Hunger Games, but drones aren't a thing? Okay. Anyway, when they get back, Katniss goes to bed without eating, and in the morning, Prim has to shake her awake. She ignores her schedule after breakfast and goes to sleep in her favorite closet. If I could think of more tangible evidence to Katniss being bisexual, I'd make so many in the closet jokes right now. Actually, fuck it, I headcanon her as bisexual. But I also headcanon her being on the asexual spectrum. Actually, I feel like there's more tangible evidence for that one, but that's another rant or side tangent that we don't need to get into at the moment. Anyway, not relevant, Alyson. Where were we? Oh yeah, after dinner, Boggs finds Katniss and tells her that there's a meeting in command. And once again, we get a ding on the Boggs being a tired single dad counter that I just decided to start. Boggs, there's a meeting in command. Disregard your current schedule. Katniss, done. Boggs, did you follow it at all today? Katniss, who knows? I'm mentally disoriented. And then, holds up her wrist and there's no wristband. And Kat's like, see, I can't even remember they took my bracelet. Anyway, so Beetee thinks that he'll be able to get into the Capitol's airwaves so that he'll be able to air one of their propos in the Capitol. And President Snow is doing some kind of special announcement live, so perfect event to disrupt with the propos, because nothing is more fun than upstaging Snow and driving him crazy. The live stream opens with Snow standing behind a podium. Camera pulls back and we see Peeta off to the side sitting in front of a map of Panem, and he looks even worse than he did a few days ago. So, yikes. He rehashes the need for a ceasefire, and Katniss notices that he's speaking in a more angry and agitated tone. And we know at this point, having read the book, that Peeta is clearly well into the hijacking process at this point, and he's fighting so hard to keep his mind together, and it's just so fucking sad. Ugh. Anyway, Peeta goes on to list things rebels have done, like destroying a dam and the derailed train with toxic waste, and then all of a sudden, Katniss is on the screen, meaning Beetee did it, he broke through, everyone is excited. But because we're in Katniss's head, it doesn't feel like much of a victory, since, the more Beetee gets the footage in, the less they see of Peeta. They don't get to know what's going on with him. Eventually, the Capitol manages to get some control back, and the set is in a little bit of chaos. Everyone trying to figure out what to do, and time to read the end of this chapter. Snow plows forward, saying that clearly the rebels are now attempting to disrupt the decimation of information they find incriminating, but both truth and justice will reign. The full broadcast will resume once security has been reinstated. He asked Peeta if, given tonight's demonstration, he has any parting thoughts for Katniss Everdeen. At the mention of my name, Peeta's face contorts in effort. Katniss, how do you think this will end? What will be left? No one is safe, not in the capital, not in the districts, and you, in 13. He inhales sharply as if fighting for air. His eyes look insane. Dead by morning. Off camera, Snow orders, end it. Beatty throws the whole thing into chaos by flashing a still shot of me standing in front of the hospital at 3-second intervals. But between the images, we are privy to the real-life action being played out on set. Peeta's attempt to continue speaking. The camera knocked down to record the white tile floor, the scuffle of boots, the impact of the blow that's inseparable from Peeta's cry of pain, and his blood as it splatters on the tiles. And that's it. That's the end of the chapter. That is the end of part 1. We are going on a mini sort of hiatus because Christmas is next week, and I'm busy. I probably, knowing me though, I will probably release at least 1 or 2 bonus episodes because I can't help myself. But anyway, so next time, whenever that is, probably in the new year. Holy crap, it's almost 2023. We will be back into Mockingjay. We will dive into part 2, and we will talk about chapters. What's it called? Yeah, we'll talk about chapters 10 to 12. I can't believe it. I can do math. But yes, I'm so tired. It's after midnight, and I am still at my grandparents' house. I need to go home. It took a while. But anyway, thank you guys so much for listening, and thank you so much for sticking around with me for almost a full year. Holy crap. I still can't believe I made it this far with my podcast, and I'm very proud of myself. But happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate around this time of year, and I hope you all have a great day/night, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!